I take my books the same way I take my women. Fantasies. Hello there, everyone. You can call me Sean, and henceforth I shall be reviewing works of the fantasy genre. Fantasy is a very versatile genre with a long history, and while modern fantasy is usually seen as having begun with Tolkien, one can arguably trace it all the way back to ancient epics such as the Iliad, the Aeneid, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Of course, like all genres, it's got its hacks and its uninspired writers. A common flaw in fantasy works is that they often read like someone transcribed a Dungeons & Dragons campaign and called it a book. And this problem is greatly amplified with D&D tie-in novels, which makes the rare instance when I stumble across a D&D novel of actual quality a very special occasion. Which brings me to the topic of Drizzt Do'Urden, or however the hell I'm supposed to pronounce that. Odds are that if you know anything about Dungeons & Dragons, you've heard of Drizzt. He was a dark elf, or drow, who shed his people's evil ways and went about adventuring and being a hero and yada yada yada. You know the drill. His character has been shamelessly copied over and over again since he first appeared in R.A. Salvatore's Icewind Dale trilogy. Drizzt was so popular that Salvatore went back and wrote a prequel trilogy. Then he wrote some sequels to Icewind Dale. Then more sequels. And more. Nowadays, the books are just labeled as The Legend of Drizzt to make things easier for everyone. Drizzt is perhaps one of the most well-known characters in the heroic fantasy subgenre. In my eyes, he's second only to Conan in this regard. So, how did he get started on this path? Well, this question is answered in Homeland, the first installment of the Dark Elf trilogy. Let's have a look, shall we? This is Fantasy Hoedown. The plot of Homeland isn't your typical sword and sorcery. Instead, the book focuses on chronicling Drizzt's childhood and adolescence, while also examining the political climate of Menzoberranzan, the Drow city. And really, the political aspects are the best parts of the book. Drow culture is distinguished by two primary characteristics. First, it is a matriarchal society as opposed to a patriarchal one. And second, it is pretty much overflowing with backstabbing and underhanded schemes. And they say if women ruled the world, there'd be no wars. Drizzt is the son of Matron Malice, the leader of House Do'Urden. I'm not sure who names their daughter Malice, especially in a society that seems to create names by barfing Z's all over the rest of the alphabet, but whatever, let's roll with it. Malice has been working on a number of schemes to bring House Do'Urden into the top of Drow society. In fact, the book opens with House Do'Urden eradicating another house from the face of the earth in a secret attack. That's one of the more interesting aspects of Drow politics. You're allowed to kill everyone who opposes you, as long as you don't leave any evidence or witnesses. You could probably walk around the city with a t-shirt with a list of people you killed written on it, and no one would do a thing unless someone happened to actually see you commit the crime. In which case, everyone in the city will be on your ass before you can say Drizzt Do'Urden of Dermund and Shibirnan, House Do'Urden, 9th House of Menzoberranzan. Unfortunately, the politics take a back seat for most of the plot. This is Drizzt's story. And as such, there's a lot of scenes where Drizzt approaches with wide-eyed idealism, shouting something about honor, only to be crushed because Drow are not honorable people. And now we reach my major complaint with this book. Drizzt has literally no reason to be a good person. He's raised in a society of cutthroats. His family is full of sadists and sociopaths. His god demands the slaughter of innocents. In the society, where the hell did Drizzt get his ideals? I can see no possible way he could have developed them. I mean, Salvatore sort of tries to justify this by having Zaknathan, his mentor and father, impart his idealism onto Drizzt, but where did Zaknathan get it? And it's shown multiple times that Drizzt was born with these ideals. Yeah, I get that alignments are a big thing in D&D land, and having them as an all-encompassing force is fine in a game, but when it transitions into book form, it needs to be addressed. Especially jarring because the book, for the most part, avoids the typical D&D caveats that most tie-in books fall into. My second complaint is that many of the fights seem to follow a formula. Let's see if you can spot it. He didn't need to watch anything more to understand the Weapon Master's deadly block attacks. Zack could have cut him apart if he had not dropped low in the blackness. He came right at on Drizzt, slapping with the butt of his weapon, then spinning it over full on a brutal thrust designed for a quick kill. A sudden move perfectly executed. To Drizzt, though, it seemed the most basic of attack routines. Drizzt was down into a dive before the wand even discharged. The lightning bolt sundered the door into Alton's highest chamber and bounced out the adjoining room. Normally, a single drow faced off evenly against a water troll would not have the advantage, but as the others in his patrol group had come to see in the past 10 days, Drizzt was no ordinary young drow. If Drizzt had been even slightly surprised, or if his reflexes had not been honed to such perfection, he surely would have been crushed flat. Salvatore constantly pauses to remind us that Drizzt is not just a normal drow. He is Drizzt Motherfrackin' Do'Urden, the greatest warrior who ever lived, and don't you forget it. There's also Salvatore's habit of explaining the motivations for why characters say things they do, and trust me, this is overused. It's also really lazy writing, and it messes up the point of view. I mean, the book will randomly switch to different characters' point of view from paragraph to paragraph in some instances, and there's really no need to explain why they say everything they do every time they open their mouths. It would have been better if you just let their characterizations do that for him. Naturally, the book ends with Drizzt giving his mom the finger and leaving the city to strike out on his own, accompanied by his panther friend, Guinevere. Wait a minute, Guinevere? You mean like Arthur's wife? I thought the panther was a boy. You know what? Screw it. I don't care. He leaves with his androgynous panther, and thus begins the iconic fantasy series that will not die. So, Homeland is a good book. It's not great. It's basically just a slight level above okay. It certainly can't hold a candle to anything written by, say, Pratchett. But Salvatore still manages to deliver a fun little tale that will, if anything, offer a pleasant vacation from your extremely boring and unfulfilling lives. It's like the fantasy literature equivalent of a summer blockbuster. Pretty mindless, but pretty fun as well. So, if you're looking for a good book that you can use to kill a few hours, like, I don't know, like if you're in a car ride or something, you could do a lot worse than Homeland. Now, if you'll excuse me, the evil House Smith from across the street is launching an assault on my home. To arms, my brothers! To arms!